like any noise is a threat. So
Right,
be
right.
okay.
Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. Okay. Give it a minute or two.
Oh, you hear her?
No, no. Hey, welcome back to the Awesome Life Podcast. I'm Karen Stultz, your host, and I am here today with round two, actually, full disclosure, with Kathy Batista. Uh, we tried this once before, and it was a great interview. However, for whatever reason, I didn't press the right button and we didn't get recorded, but we had a great time. So we decided that the second time around was going to be even better. And that is our choice. It is going to be fantastic for all you awesome listeners. Let me tell you a little bit about Kathy. She is a mindfulness, mindset, and mood coach. I love it. The three M's, 3M coach. Kathy is the go-to coach for midlife women. She believes midlife is not just based on age. It is a phase of life, and it can be your best one yet. And don't we know that? And by tapping into your values and your strengths, you can take aligned action to create purpose and joy and everything leading up to that. She helps you create a sense of fulfillment. This is your time. So is it any wonder that I wanted her as a guest on the Awesome Life podcast? This is your time. So welcome, Kathy. Thank you so much for the faux pas that we had before, but hey, it can only get better, right?
Yes, you're right. And thank you, Karen. I'm so excited to be on again because I know we had such a great conversation the first time and it can only get better.
Absolutely. I always say, everything is for a reason. And as long as you learn, which I didn't know what had happened, and now I've learned
Mm.
how to correct that. So I feel great, and I get to hang out with Kathy again. So tell me, Kathy, how did you get into the midlife 3M since
Yeah.
you're coaching?
How did I start coaching? I was actually just talking with somebody about this today because what happens for me, and I have seen this with my clients and friends and family, is most of these changes, most of these ideas, most of these transitions in our life really just happen from a thought. And it's this thought. And when we listen to that inner voice, we can take and decide what to do with it, right? And so I was actually really struggling with entering midlife. And I work by midlife is 35 to 70. And I do this because it was about 37, 38, and I was miserable and I had no idea why. I had no idea that there was something called perimenopause. I had no idea that anything below 50 was midlife. But when we have these transitions and changes and physical drops, hormone drops, our life just sometimes can seem foreign and we're just outside looking in. And I felt miserable. But what the worst of it was, I made myself feel shame and guilt for feeling bad because there was no reason. Everything looked good, everything seemed good. But on the inside, I just felt like, what is going on? Not only the physical, tired and irritable, but just sad and my children are growing, my life is changing, and so I was struggling and I tried unsuccessfully for a few years to kind of handle it myself. I did a few things that are all part of my journey. I drank too much, I ate too much, I shopped too much. I did anything to fill this yuckiness and it wasn't working. And so, like anybody, when you're tired of being sick and tired, you finally say, I need help. And that's what I did. I sought different therapists, coaches, hormone specialists. And it was on a conversation with my coach at the time. And we were working through some stuff. And the thought that I just spoke of that triggers things, this thought came to me. And I said, I could do this. I could totally coach women and I could take my experience and be of service. And so that's really how I started coaching, was just saying I could do this. And then starting to coach, meeting other women, realizing that what happened and what was happening to me is not unique. I mean, then there's your coaching practice all laid out for you.
Oh, that's it. And I love the fact that you have the midlife starting in your mid 30s in reality,
Mm,
because uh, you know, you don't think about that, as you say, at age 50, that is menopause, and anything between, well, 48 to 50 in my mind
yeah.
was the thing. So I did not understand what was going on with me, but just like you, I was just sad. I was miserable. I
Mm,
felt awful. My 30s were okay, but that that 40, I tell you, that was a lost year for me when I
yeah.
hit 40. And I don't know in reality if somebody had told me, well, it's just your hormones, Karen, um, that I would have cared one way or the other. It really didn't matter. And because I didn't understand. And at the time, there were no life coaches when I was going through it. There were no life coaches.
Mm,
So, but I do remember somebody coming to me many years after that saying, "Oh no, there was such a thing as perimenopause. No wonder I am acting the way I am." And I said, "Really? Does it really make that much of a difference?" "Well, Karen, yes, of course it does."
mm.
So I'm so impressed that you found that way through and found something that would really light up your life.
Yeah. I think that speaking to what you just talked about is when, no matter what we're feeling, whether it's in our mind, body, or soul, if there's some disease, it's our human nature to want to label it, to want to say, this is why it's happening, right? And it's a control. It's control to say, now I have an idea why, and now I can take some steps to figure out what it is, whether it's, you're getting headaches. Why am I getting, you want to figure it out. Like, why
Mhm.
am I miserable? I want to figure it out, because if once we find, and it might not always be the first guess, right? But once we find an avenue, we become a little more tenacious in our own health and in our own well-being to say, I think I can, you know, I have some direction on how to solve what's happening, how to help myself.
Yeah, for sure. Being able
Mhm.
to do that is to take charge. Take charge of yourself again and not
Yeah.
let the outside in, but to really take charge. So, do you have any tips of what people might be able to do to find that next step?
Yeah, yeah. I think that what, for me, when I think about the disturbances, it's kind of like I felt purposeless. And so I often find the women that I work with are looking for a new or different purpose, because I work from the frame of mind that we have many purposes throughout our lives. And it's when we get stuck in one and it doesn't serve us anymore that we're like, well, that's what my purpose was. I'm a mom, but now my kids are 20. So how can I still do this? Right? Like navigating that world of fluidity, moving through our purposes. So I find when people are feeling like, okay, that answering that question, what's next? Is this it? It's often a case of unfulfilled values that aren't being expressed. And then you're like, how can I serve and be of purpose in some way? So oftentimes a great tip is to look at your values and where are you maybe not expressing them? How can you bring them in? And the a really easy way I love to start this conversation with my clients is, yes, there's tons of online quizzes, there's tons of ways to figure out what your values are. But I love this little exercise of, okay, let's just imagine you are walking into your living room. How do you want to feel? What are those adjectives, right? And then again, when someone else is walking into your living room, how do you want them to feel? And so then all of a sudden we've cultivated some words of values that need expression, that we know are part of your heart and soul, right? And they switch. If we think back to how I wanted somebody to walk into my living room when I was in my first apartment in my 20s, it's much different than today. So those words give us a clue. You know, some people say welcoming, some people say comfortable, some people say cozy, some people say they want it pristine, gorgeous, right? So now we've kind of got a little bit of, okay, where are you expressing that? Where else inside of your life are you taking it and making it gorgeous, right? And doing things that bring that feeling to you.
That is cool. And the fact that you said it changes. You know, I have to throw some of my awesome stuff in there because
Oh, right
it
ahead.
is imperative to be aware, of your values, aware of your strengths, and both of which you start with in your work as well.
Mm.
And it is the first thing in the awesomeness training. Um, what I have experienced though, and we're just having a nice discussion here, Kathy. What I've experienced is that yes, our values do change as we grow, right? What's important to us in our 20s may not matter when we hit 60, you know? However, if we are not living our values, we're not living. And I found that our top 3 to 5 values don't change. But the other 97,000 values that are available to us might change a little bit. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Um, I think that the human experience is very capable of change, and that can take on many forms. And it might be, I would venture to say maybe then, so you've got your top five, like you talked about. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe they pinball. Maybe number five is up at number one at certain points in your life, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe they go back and forth. Um, I always liken it to, you know, things that we grew up liking, things that we like now, right? If you were to say, Kathy, how do you spend your time? And I said, oh my gosh, I love dressing my dolls and having them act out. That is a very stuck sort of love, right? But if I was to, this is what I love doing. I love knitting and doing this. Are they the same creative thing? Yes, but do they switch and move up and down? Because now the amount of time I can spend on being creative is different than when you're 8. And so I do think that I would venture to say that if we were to poll the world, people's change, they go up and down. People have the capacity to change. But I would also to agree with you that there's probably some core values that shift. and say, like I said, move from number 5 to number 1 or back down and around and whatnot. And so I think that I absolutely love that there's all these perspectives on it, because then that's how people gravitate towards like-minded people, right? And so
Mhm.
if that's amazing. I would love to know your top 3 values.
Oh, I have to agree with you. You're absolutely right. I think as you were speaking, they do vary, but they're always at the top. I mean, they don't ever go below that 5 point. And my top 3 are love, respect, and trust.
That's beautiful.
And like you
Okay,
say,
great.
sometimes trust is number 1, sometimes respect is number 1, and sometimes love is number 1.
Mm.
But yeah,
Do you find Oh, I'm sorry.
no, no.
I was just gonna say, do you find that it switches like with what you're doing or who you're with, right? Is that what you're saying? Like in different elements and parts of your life?
Scenarios, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, in different
Hmm.
scenarios. But
Yeah.
what I've found is that people in business, like you and I, if we are not being awesome in our business, if we're not feeling that success in our business or in our life, yeah, or in your life, you're not living those top 3 values.
Mm.
And it's important to find those. All right, we'll go down to 5. 1 to 5. But we need to 4 and 5 sometimes change a lot, but the top 3 are always there that you really need to be living in order, in my personal feeling, in order to have that awesome feeling of success in your
Mm.
life.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my personal feeling, and that's what I teach. But um, and noticing, things are getting hard. You know, well, I love the fact that you do mindfulness. Mindfulness is so key. Tell us about your mindfulness. Do you have any
Yeah.
tips on that?
Yeah, so mindfulness it's really just being aware of the present moment with non-judgment. And so it's in my teaching with my clients, we use mindfulness to not only center our body and center to get ready, but also it's in those moments where outside noise, whether it's outside or inside, can be quieted, and we can actually start to listen to our intuition and our inner voice. And that's often where a lot of gems can be found. It's where we can say, this feels good, or this doesn't feel good, or this is missing, or I am just loving this part of my life and want to do more of it. It's in those moments of mindfulness that we take and kind of get in touch with that inner voice. I think inner voice, inner child, intuition, it's all that same voice that we're kind of hearing and listening to. Inner child can often be a little more precocious or bratty than your intuition or so it's just a matter of getting quiet to hear that. And there's so many different ways to do that, whether there is classic mindfulness exercises, and meditation can fall underneath that. Meditation tends to be a little more rigid than the mindfulness that I teach. So we definitely incorporate into coaching women for their next step in their life, because we really want to get quiet and listen to ourselves, because we've muted ourselves for so long.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. And that is the awareness that we need to the A in awesome is the awareness and the allowing that mindfulness to come in to really be clear on what you are hearing, what you are feeling, what you are sensing.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. 'Cause in reality, that's all we have is this moment, right?
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, the past is gone. The future is unknown. All we have is now, and it's gone now, and it's gone now, and it's gone now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how we are in this moment gives us an opportunity.
Oh, yeah. And it lends itself to creating both the past and the future. If
Yeah,
you are present in the moment, your past then is authentic, and then your future can be created that way if you're being present and aware. And I love that it's the non-judgment, because a lot of people find mindfulness challenging, but there's no judgment in it. And I love to teach people, if we're doing a mindfulness exercise, to remind them that it's in that moment that you come back to the awareness of the present moment, that you're being mindful. So if it happens once or 20 times during a session of mindfulness, it's you've come, that's great. You did it. There's no judgment there.
no,
And every day is different.
I love that. So, do you do classes specifically on mindfulness, or is it just part of your overall program?
Yeah, I have done classes and group coaching, but probably for the last year now, I've really focused on one-on-one coaching. And it is this three-pillar coaching, which is mindset, mindfulness, and mood. And so we incorporate mindfulness into the whole coaching experience, with working on our mindset, and with our mood. It's mood is just the M, because as you mentioned, I couldn't break from the three M's. So mood to me is really getting in touch with, some neuro-based practices, whether that's, being in parasympathetic state, trying to get into it more often, whether we're doing brain-based wellness, vagus, lymph work, anything to take and calm the body to get it ready to receive. Because when we're in this constant state of fight or flight, any input that we're bringing in is often perceived as a threat. And we want to get our body and mind into a place where the input is received appropriately, warrantedly, right? And then we can work on the mindfulness. And then once we've listened and we've gotten in tune with ourselves, we can take a look at our mindset and say, all right, let's look at where we want to make some changes. And mindset for me is really just taking a look at whether it's our limiting beliefs and doing some subconscious reprogramming, whether it's taking a look at habit or goal formations. And so then once we've kind of put those three together, we've really set the stage for some amazing growth, some amazing creation for the life that my clients want to live, for what they're looking for.
Yeah, and really, do your clients know what they're looking for when they come to you, or they just know they want to change?
I would say there's a little of both, right? I think
Mhm.
that there's some people who are very similar to how I was feeling, and is just something is wrong. I don't like it. I want to feel better. Yeah, and that's it, right? And then some people say, this is, I really want to start this next chapter. I know I want to bring in a new career, or I know I really want to try to hone in on some skills that I have. So some people really know where they're at, and that's why this three-pillar approach that I developed, I find so useful, because it's individual. Each person that I meet with is based off of where they're at. Some people have mood and mindfulness all set and we dive right into mindset, right? Some people have their mindset and they say, this is what I want, this is how I want to get it. But their body is so revved up that nothing we do can break free. We have to start with some nervous system regulation work. So it's totally individual.
Yeah. And I love that because we are all individuals, aren't we? We're all different. And what
Yeah.
works for one doesn't necessarily work for another, which is why having your tools of the mindset, the mindfulness, and the mood, and again, the choice.
Yes.
You know, I'm in a bad mood, deal with it. Well, sometimes I'll say that, but in reality, if I am in a mood that is not um, something that makes me very happy, very comfortable, um, we got a choice
Yeah.
to have something different, but we don't know how. And that's where you come in to
Yeah.
show them how.
Yeah. Because it's to to know that you have a choice, but you don't know what the choices are is very frustrating, right? I
You don't know
know.
what you don't know. And that's
Yes,
what,
I know that I am feeling a certain way and I know that I want to feel differently, but I don't know how to get from A to B. Or I've come across a lot of women that it's, oh my gosh, um I've been doing running. I've been running for years and that's just how I exercise and that's what brings me stress relief. And we have to say, okay, that something works until it doesn't. And maybe that running is actually creating a stress and a threat response in your body. So let's take a look at ways you can play with it. And I'm not a, a physiologist or a physio expert or anything, but we can say, how do you want to play with this, right? Let's take some assessment before you begin to run and take some assessment after. Are you still getting the same response that you want? And if not, let's play with that because really it's things are useful until they're not.
exactly, exactly. And, you know, sometimes they'll be useful all the time, forever
Of
and ever.
course.
But
Hmm.
um, it's like somebody I was talking to on another podcast was that we all have addictions and we have to be careful that that release of stress and anxiety through running doesn't become an addiction to running.
Mm.
And being mindful, being um, creating a good mindset and
Yeah.
recognizing the mood that you're in and how you are finding a solution to it is really what you're helping them to achieve so that if I understand correctly, it's what you're helping them to achieve and breaking free of some of those unseen addictions that we actually have.
Yeah, I think it's in the mindfulness. It's when you've gotten quiet enough and there's ways to speak with your subconscious that you say, is this really helpful? Is this really, so you can actually come to a place where you can have an open dialogue and I believe it's in us to say, you know what, maybe this was really wonderful at one point, but it's not anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe this was a great outlet for me, but it's not. And maybe it's not that it's an addiction. It might be that I just don't know any better or haven't listened enough to say, I'm not enjoying it anymore, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're on this hamster wheel of life. And until somebody stops the wheel and says, is this the wheel you really want to be on? Sometimes we just keep going, right? So
That's
it's
it.
about that moment to say, okay, me, myself, and I right here, let's talk.
So important to be aware of what's going on in your body, in your mind, in your higher self,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and hearing it. Um, yeah, and knowing who you're surrounded with. Do you ever go into that at all? Who you're surrounded with?
And I don't go into it as a rule, but with clients, definitely, because I mean, I don't actually know where I heard it. Maybe you know where I heard it, but we are the sum of the five people we spend the most time with.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, there is cause to say, okay, what am I doing with my time? Who am I spending it with? And is it serving me? So it's not a rule, it's not a checklist item for me, really, but it is sometimes brought up because, you know, is it you want to join the book group because you want to read books, or now all of a sudden you're in this book group with people you don't really like, right? Or you're not jiving with them anymore. So sometimes it is a matter of let's take a look at how we spend our time and who we spend it with.
Yeah, yeah. So I love that. And honestly, we could continue talking for hours, I think, Kathy. And
We
I would
did once before, and then
I,
we're
I
now
would love
sort of
to do
again. Yeah.
this. We just actually, Kathy and I are not very far apart because she's in Rhode Island and I am in Maine. So at some point we will actually meet in person, I hope one day.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yeah.
Uh, in the meantime, how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, so my website is kathybatista.com, and that's KTHYBATISTA, and I'm sure you'll have it down there. So reach out to me through my website, and when you're there, I have this amazing fun little 5 question quiz, and it tells you which of the 3 pillars would be a good starting point for you on your journey. And it's just a fun little quiz. At the end, you get a ton of freebies to help get you started. And it just is a nice way to keep connected too.
Oh, fantastic.
Mm.
Fantastic. So, yes, I will have all of that information in the show notes below. So be sure to reach out to Kathy. And, you know, this is stuff that you might have heard from many people, but the fact is that you need to resonate with your coach. You, and not everyone resonates with the same coach. Thank goodness, with 8 billion people in the world, no one coach could handle it all. So, uh, Kathy is so much fun and is such a joy to be around. And she's so filled with the wisdom to really help you feel better about yourself and your situation and create a midlife that is so wonderful to have. And I know you're looking for. Kathy's your lady. So
Thank
be
you,
sure to
Kathy.
reach out to her. Any last words before we go? Any tips or uh,
Um, no, I feel like that if I had a few takeaways from our conversation, I love the idea that we have core values and we need to find out what they are and reach out to a coach, because that's a coach, whether they're quote unquote midlife or life coach or business coach, that is one of the first tools in our toolbox. So if you're having trouble with any of, where your values lie, reach out to a coach. And I think too, it's stopping and saying, is what I'm doing still helping, right? Is how I'm living my life really making me shine every day, wanting to get up and enjoy? So it's a matter of, like you said, finding a connection with somebody and discovering what lies next for you.
yeah, the possibilities are endless, people. The possibilities are endless, and it is really helpful to have your coach be able to help you recognize which possibilities are in your best interests as well.
Mm.
Hence the mindfulness, the mindset, and the mood. The 3M coach, Kathy Batista.
Oh, I feel a new tagline coming on. 3M will help it stick, right?
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Something goofy, right? Oh, anyway, yes,
Oh,
it
that's
has been
great.
such a pleasure, Karen. I've enjoyed it, and I hope that your audience enjoys it. And I have a feeling, like you said, our paths will cross again soon.
Absolutely. We will make it happen because the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
So until the next time, everyone, be awesome.